The most dangerous phase of the Russia-Ukraine war is here, and what happens in the next 2 months will drastically reshape the conflict. The USA is one of the biggest donors to Ukraine's defense, but the USA policy is changing, and even in this transition period, it is becoming wildly unpredictable. Biden has 2 months left as I film this video before Donald Trump takes office. But rather than countries waiting to see what happens as America goes through a quiet period, things are looking quite desperate. The issue is that Donald Trump and Joe Biden think so differently about how to end the Ukraine crisis. And because they don't see eye to eye and there's not a lot of teamwork going on, they are actively racing to outdo each other. For example, Biden is trying to get as much money as he can into Ukraine, and Trump is doing what he can to stop that. Ukraine's biggest helper, the USA, has turned into Jekyll and Hyde, issuing conflicting statements and having so much ambiguity that even the USA doesn't know what direction it's going in anymore. This is not just dangerous for Ukraine, it's dangerous for the world. First up, take Biden's policy of allowing Ukraine to use long-range American missiles to strike Russia. If Biden was as pro-Ukraine as he says, then he should have let this happen 8 months ago. Done now at a time when Trump could revoke that in about 8 weeks' time means that Ukraine will now be in a rush to handle devastating weapons. There will be no time for thinking with Ukraine. Time just simply is not on their side right now. And then there's the issue of nuclear weapons. The New York Times reported that some officials in Biden's administration were talking about Ukraine having back their nuclear weapons, which they gave up back when the Soviet Union collapsed. The team who were talking about this felt that nuclear weapons would be a great deterrent to Russia. Again, too late. This time, about 30 years too late. You'd have to somehow get those weapons into Ukraine, and Russia would undoubtedly fire before anything like that happened. Forget Cuban Missile Crisis, you'll be looking at Ukraine Missile Crisis. And while this is extremely unlikely to happen, Ukraine are not going to be getting nuclear weapons because of some editorial in the New York Times, just even reporting about this is dangerous. Yes, I too am reporting about it, but Russia has already responded, so no extra harm done. Russia responded to these talks and used it as ammunition to say that, look, America is funding our enemy, Ukraine, and they're trying to attack us. And Russia has said that such a move would be insane and would lead to nuclear war. Not good for anyone. But the real issue from that piece, that editorial, and the talk of nuclear weapons in Ukraine is that Russia could use it to make a preemptive strike onto Ukraine. They could say, look, we know that nuclear weapons are arriving, now's our excuse to use our own nuclear weapons. Putin has already adjusted his nuclear doctrine to say that he can use nukes if the country feels threatened. What more better way to say you feel threatened than your neighbor getting nuclear weapons? What I'm saying is that these talks would give Russia the excuse it low-key wants. And then there is mobilization. Ukraine had a tough time lowering its mobilization age from 27 to 25. Yes, the data from polls suggests that many Ukrainians want to fight Russia, but let's be real, if Ukrainians really wanted to fight Russia, then Zelensky would not have needed to have closed the borders and enacted martial law for 2+ years. No, sending men off to the meat grinder is never going to be a politically popular move. Zelensky knew this, but he was pressured by the US back when they were trying to reduce the age from 27 to 25. The US said, what's the point of giving you weapons if you've got no men to use them? So Zelensky, he kind of backed down and he lowered the age. But now a US official is saying that's not enough, you need even more. And so the US are now talking about Ukraine lowering the conscription age to 18. Yes, many European countries will say, so what? Our conscription age is 18 as well. But those countries are not at war with Russia yet. Biden has proudly said that these moves stop putting US troops onto Ukrainian and Russian soil and therefore protect American interests. But perhaps Biden should also think about protecting Ukrainian interests. If Biden wants Ukraine to win, he could free up Ukraine's use of long-range missiles rather than dictating where Ukraine can and can't hit. Ukraine have complained that by being told where they can hit while Russia has a free hand, it is essentially the same as Ukraine fighting with one hand tied behind its back. And they're right. Currently, Biden still has put big limits on Ukraine in this fight. And if Biden wants Ukraine to fight, then he needs to let Ukraine fight. Half measures rarely work during war. There are even more issues as well. Russia is testing bigger and more dangerous weapons. Europe is actively talking about sending their troops to defend Ukraine, and the region is edging towards something which feels more unpredictable. Biden and Trump might feel very differently about the war, but they are arguably two of the most powerful people in the world. One is leaving and their power is dwindling, and another is coming into office but has not yet secured that official power. So what is actually in power right now? It feels like a void. That is the perfect opportunity for Russia to strike, and already we are seeing bigger weapons being used and Russia taking more land off Ukraine at a faster pace than at any point throughout this war. Biden and Trump must work together in these 2 months to ensure a smooth transition and to protect the interests of Ukraine and Europe. Otherwise, there can be no winners.